When you consider getting a 3D pen, you usually hear that you will be able to draw in the air. Is it true? Absolutely. It all depends how you look at it. Here is our ball, and we can see it is a ball, even though really it is just a few curved lines in mid-air, dividing the empty space in front of you into a part that is the ball and the part that is not the ball. The same way, if we draw a circle on a piece of paper, it divides the points on the paper into the ones that are part of the circle and points that are surrounding the circle. A moment ago, all the points were the same, and now there is this round fence that gives them a different meaning in our perception. This works even more in 3D, where we don't even have the physical piece of paper. We just have the empty space. And yet, you can plainly see where in that space the curved surface of this ball is, even though it is not there yet and may never be. It is an assumption. 3D pen is an amazing art tool that will let you create these three-dimensional visual assumptions. There are so many options, it is hard to know where to even start. Planning designs on curved surfaces presents a special set of problems, because as we know from school, geometry behaves differently on curved surfaces. If you ever try to draw a checkerboard on a sheet of paper and then on a balloon, you will know what I mean. Squares on balls are not square. So the design needs to change depending on where it is on that curved surface. This may require some extra planning. Fortunately, it has been done a few times before. Two very diverse folk art traditions took it to incredible levels. One is an Eastern European tradition of dyeing Pysanky Easter eggs. And the other one is Japanese art of making Temari balls, which are intricately embroidered balls that are supposed to bring blessing and good luck to the recipient. Despite the fact that the eggs and Temari balls originated on the opposite sides of the world, both of these folk arts start by dividing the round shape into networks of segments as a way to organize the design elements around the shape. These networks are very traditional and ultimately lead to hundreds of designs starting from the same network. Now, what we made here is just such a network, and only the network. We don't even have a physical ball or an egg. We just have an empty space fenced in by our particular network. The network itself supports the design and at the same time divides the space into all these curved segments. That will help us organize the pattern. So let's make a skeleton ball, and then we'll see how that works. I am using the circle segment of the 3D Mate design mat. The link is down below if you need one, which gives me 10 perfect circles. I will only need every other circle on this 3D Mate mat circle segment. Plus, I will also include the largest circle to allow me to make the largest possible ball with this tool, which is 5 inches. Here are my intended circles for the first hemisphere, plus all the exponentially increasing spacers that I plan to use for the assembly process. The way contour lifting technique works is that I will lift each one of these circles to the height where it meets the surface of my intended ball. Because ball is just a bunch of concentric circles stacked up in space. Here is a quarter of our future ball, and down here is where the circles are placed, 1/4 of an inch apart. I know we have gone through making ball patterns before, But this one is a little different because here we have only 10 predetermined circles. So we need to work with what we have available. I will mark the ones I intend to use, which is every other one, and then also the largest available circle for the equator. Now let's plan the height of the lifts. Here is where the circles touch the surface of the ball. Just make sure you are making these lines parallel to the z-axis. Then I will connect the surface contact points to the z-axis, making sure those connections are parallel to the equator of my ball. Here are the centers of my 5 circles. I am going to mark them with a fat red marker to represent the thickness of the filament of the circles, and make sure I can still see these marks when I plan the spacers, to leave room for the thickness of the material. My spacers are numbered by how many craft sticks I have glued together in each stack, from 1 up to 12. But if you don't have craft sticks, you can also use cardboard strips or whatever you have around to reach the right height for each gap between the layers. There are only 5 of them. For just a brief recap on how the assembly works, in case you need to know right this minute. Lift the first circle up the wire. Connect the next circle to the middle axis, so it stays centered once it becomes its turn to be lifted. Lower the first one to the height of the first spacer and connect it to the bottom circle. After the first few connections solidify, you can remove the spacers and finish the connections all around. And then lift the structure up the wire again and repeat the process. Occasionally, you may want to check if the ball curve is actually coming out round, and if all the planned spacers will still fit in the projected height of the ball. All you need for that is a cardboard cutout the size of a quarter of the equator circle. Keep going until you get to the largest circle, and then do it all again for the second hemisphere. The good news is you don't actually need to make the whole second half, because that would unnecessarily double the equator circle, which would then show as a heavier seam on the finished ball. So you want to stop just one step short with the second one to achieve a seamless design. Then just stabilize the first hemisphere so it stays put and join the 2 parts together using the largest spacer. To make the whole structure stronger, I am going to subdivide each segment in the middle. Now it's time to edit all the inside braces out, if you decide you don't want them. It would have been easier if I did this step before the subdivision, but oh well. I can still reach inside with my cutters. Now, all we need is our box of crayons. The idea is to put the lines next to each other, but not necessarily join them. Kind of like placing embroidery threads next to each other. The trick to making this work is not to work in the same spot long enough for the underlying network to heat up too much and melt and collapse. So that's why I'm rotating the ball around after each addition. The turntable is a big help here. By the time I get all the way around to the original spot, it will have cooled enough to place another strand next to it. Once you have finished the first half, you will need to flip the project. It is way more comfortable to work from the narrower end to the wider than the other way around. The beauty of working into the predetermined spherical grid is that it defines the shape and size of the individual areas you need to fill. At the top of the ball, I obviously don't have enough room to put in all the stripes as wide as around the equator. So the design will have to be altered to accommodate the shape. Perhaps in this case, I will shift the stripes into a star on both ends. All done. Makes a great event decoration. Especially since it's so lightweight, it can hang on a single thread. And the color and design possibilities are endless. The actual Temari balls are of course solid embroidered balls, so you can decorate only their surface. With 3D pen we can make them transparent and gain the opportunity to also put design elements inside the balls. But more about that next time. Until then, go and make something.